And a lot of it depends on how I feel after. So that's the other benchmark that I recommend. Again, and you can sort of self-gauge on this is how do you feel after? Not just like right after, because you're going to get a rush of like adrenaline and other things kind of flowing in your system, but an hour later, how do you feel? Because by doing these types of therapies, you should feel better the rest of the day. If you do this stuff in the morning or at night or whatever, you should feel better for the next 24 hours. If at any point in the next 24 hours you feel more fatigued, you feel exhausted, you have a headache, you feel nauseous, that's not what we're going for. That's too far. You didn't hydrate enough. Your system wasn't ready for it. You pushed it too far. You got it too cold for too long, and it's having a hard time regulating. Hey there, welcome to the Female Health Solution podcast, where we discuss women's health, hormones, and everything else in between. Join me as we dive into the tools that you need to live your healthiest life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Female Health Solution podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Beth Westy. We're going to talk about some of these health trends and what's worth your time, what's not, right? Now, as I talk about some of these health trends, keep in mind, some of these trends that are trending right now, they've been around for thousands of years. It's not a trend. It's not a trend. This is something that people have done for not just decades or centuries, but for thousands of years for their overall health and maintenance. When we talk about human physiology, it's not really changed that much, right? It's over the past couple thousand years. So some of these ancient, healing things and everything. And when we talk about Eastern medicine practices, lifestyles, all these things that I will pull in and recommend, they're not new. It's not new. It's not new. So as a trending, people are talking about it now, which is fantastic. But realize that a lot of times the lifestyles that we live now, the fast-paced, what we do when we get sick or don't feel good or are stressed or whatever, that's the trend, right? That's not been around for forever. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's in more recent history. Like, think about the last 100 years. The last 100 years, our lifestyles have changed drastically for humans in the US, at least, right? It's just, it's very different. So when we talk about some of these healing techniques and stuff, are they really worth it? Well, yeah, because if it has been around for thousands of years, there's a reason for it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so let's start off here with talking about saunas. When we talk about a sauna, sauna, sauna. Okay, so my husband is like half Finnish, like he's half Finnish and half Scottish. His name is a Finnish name, Hjalmar, right? So the way he says sauna is what he considers the accurate way to say sauna, whereas the way I say sauna is the way a Minnesotan would say sauna. So bear with me on that pronunciation. If you're like cringing as I say it, I'm so sorry. So sorry about it. Anyway, moving on. When we talk about the benefits of being in a heat box, right? There's different benefits and things like that to being in a steam room or a sauna or something like that. There's heat therapy that benefits the body. Now, keep in mind, you want to make sure that the temperature that you're in is moderated, that you're not going from doing no heat therapies. I'm just going to call it heat therapy because we can use steam rooms and stuff in the same breath here. You don't want to go from not using it at all to all of a sudden being in a super, super hot steam room, sauna, something where you're like, oh my gosh, I feel nauseous and sick and everything, right? And if your body's not ready for it, if you're not prepped for it, it can be unhealthy. It can have a negative side effect and your body cannot be ready for it. So start with where you're at. And again, if you have questions, talk to a health professional. This is why it's so beneficial to work with a health professional with these things. When I started doing a sauna and I was going through mold detoxing, saunas are one of the best things to help your system. And I personally have a history of thyroid issues, body temperature regulation issues, all of that. I could not do a sauna at the regular temperature for very long at all. I started at 5 minutes on the lowest temperature in my little at home sauna thing. I don't have a big one. I have like a little individual cubby thing. Um, Therasage, I think is the brand. Anyway, love it, but I had to start really slow. And it took me months of slowly increasing the temperature and the time each incrementally. I would not just start off at the highest rate. I had to start at the very, very lowest. I started at like 110 degrees, which isn't that hot. And I started for 5 minutes. And then I bumped it and then bumped it and bumped it. And I would try and go a week without changing it, using it, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. It's not very long, right? But I was looking for a sweat or something. And I knew that if I bumped up the temperature, so say I was going for 120 degrees at 10 minutes and I felt dizzy, nauseous, sick, weak, then I knew I had to back down again and wait and just keep it at that same pace before I went up. Now I can sit in a sauna for 30 minutes at the highest temperature that they have. I keep my head out still because I still have issues with dizziness if my head gets too hot. So I keep my head out and I just put the rest of my body in, right? But that also has helped me be able to transition to do hot yoga classes, things like that. So there is a caveat here where you must be hydrated and have enough minerals and things in your system before you start, and start low and slow and slowly build up from there. But there's a huge benefit to doing a sauna. And yes, it can be helpful. It helps flush out your system, increases circulation. I do a red light sauna. Not everybody does a red light sauna, but I love the properties of doing red light as well and doing a sauna at the same time. So that's fantastic. When we talk about benefits of red light or sauna, um, some of the things just to keep in mind here, um, people talk about improved heart health or things like that. I think that's just like the heat and the blood flow and everything that's going to improve, that improved circulation. The improved circulation I notice is um, like your muscle tissue feels better. If I'm having an autoimmune flare and I feel sore and achy and everything else, I'll get in a sauna. Oh, and I feel instantly better afterwards. My joints feel better. My body feels better. My muscles are less achy. I don't feel like stronger or anything, but I feel way less achy and in pain. That's one of the biggest things. Sleep can be improved with using a sauna, but this goes along the same properties of taking a hot bath or something at night. It helps with your body temperature regulation. So you have to release a lot of heat internally to help regulate your body temperature so that you actually get into a deeper sleep. That's why sleep benefits are sleep in a cold room, and that can help you get into a deeper sleep. But taking a hot bath or a sauna before, or steam room, right, before bed is really, really helpful. This is also helpful for kids, right? A lot of this stuff in terms of health trends too that are helpful for kids to be in a good routine and everything else is also helpful for adults. Just because you're an adult doesn't mean that you can't have a good sleep routine, you know? Um, the other thing is it talks about helping with um, like your skin and respiratory health, other things like that. Steam room, skin health, respiratory health. There's the improvement in muscle and joints. But really, steam rooms are different. I have a hard time in a steam room versus a sauna. I can't get that breath in, and it bothers. It makes me a little anxious, to be frank. It makes me a little anxious. So I won't do a steam room as often as I'll do a sauna. And obviously I got a little sauna unit for my home and I've had it for several years. So it is a bit of an investment. If you're looking at, getting something like this, like a device, like a sauna in your home, it is a bit of an investment, but I use it. My husband's used it. My kids have used it. They're older, right? My son is now 18. It is fantastic to have as a tool within the home that you don't need to leave the home to utilize. So there's that. Okay. Other cold plunges. Now we're talking about cold therapy or hot therapy. Let's talk about cold therapy, cold plunges. This is something that I have mixed feelings on, and I'll be really honest about. In Eastern medicine, you want to be very careful about anything that is too extreme of a temperature that you're exposed to for too long, warm or cold. However, there is also a history, and especially in a Scandinavian, right, history, especially, again, when I talk about my husband being Finnish, he grew up, his house growing up, they had this outfitted, because they all did in their family. There was a separate little hut, on the property where there was a steam room, or a sauna, and then you can make it more steamy by putting water on the rocks in there. And then in the wintertime, you run outside, roll in the snow, and go back inside. Now, that's a thing traditionally, culturally, that they do. That's hot and cold therapy. However, again, my recommendation, and this also comes from like personal experience of having issues with body temperature regulation, when my thyroid was being flared up, when I had other autoimmune issues, it's so much to expect your body to be able to do that. But exposing yourself to those extremes does have a benefit of improving the immune system and everything else. And there's a benefit to your metabolic process overall, yes. But go slow with it. To say, I'm going to start cold plunging today. How's your thyroid function? Right? Like, how are you doing with your stress regulation, cortisol regulation? Because it can actually make things worse if you're not careful about it. There are times where I will absolutely not do any cold therapy. And there are times where I will do some cold therapy. I don't regularly do a cold plunge, but I will do a cool at the end of the shower, especially if I've done hot yoga or if I've done a sauna. I will do and end my shower cold and have the cold water hit my throat, my thyroid, my chest, right? My abdomen. That's something that I will do. I have done cold plunging in the past. And in fact, where I went to college, we were right off of Lake Superior, and we would ice our legs in the lake, just walk right in after practice. We're in our volleyball spanks. Get done with practice, walk down or ride our bikes down to the lake, just wade in for 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, and your legs are iced. And in the training room, there was ice baths in there for us to ice our knees or ankles or whatever, but we would just do the whole thing, right? And then walk out. That was fantastic. But again, you don't want to be in there too long. You have to make sure that you're being safe with it. And are you dunking your whole body? Are you using it to ice a certain part of your body? What is that doing? Vasoconstriction, vasodilation. Understand that your body will do vasoconstriction for a certain period of time. That's narrowing of the blood vessels. But if you're exposing yourself to that cold for too long, your body has the opposite reaction where it does vasodilation. And that's where you can get actual damage to your tissues. That's going too far, right? That's going too far. So is there a benefit? Yes. But again, for most people to start off, where they start is they go 0 to 100 in one day or 1 week, and it's too much. Start with, if you take a hot shower, end with it just a little bit cooler, a little bit cooler, a little bit cooler. Stand in there for 5 seconds, then 10 seconds, then 20 seconds, and then make it slowly a little bit cooler. Right? If it's still too much for you, just start with like having it hit your feet being cold, then feet and knees, moderate it so that you can slowly work into this, especially for the female body. In Chinese medicine, the female body should not be overly cold or overly stimulated in heat or cold for too long, especially if you're working on fertility. But when we're talking about the adrenal rejuvenation for the system, which does help with hormone regulation, you want to just do it little bits at a time. Like you want to push your system, but not give it a shove so hard that it falls over. Just a little tap, just a little nudge. Tap, tap, tap it in. Tap it in. Just tap it along. And then you can do that again. Start with low and slow sauna or heat, and then slight cold variation. Again, that's where you can start. Can you get to a point where you do these really heavy temperature extremes? Sure. But again, the same thing does not work for everybody. For my body, I love to do the sauna, the heat, everything. And then I can do a cool thing, but I very rarely will get into an actual ice bath anymore. No, I won't get into an ice bath. I'll do a cool shower. And a lot of it depends on how I feel after. So that's the other benchmark that I recommend. Again, and you can sort of self-gauge on this is how do you feel after? Not just like right after, because you're going to get a rush of like adrenaline and other things kind of flowing in your system, but an hour later, how do you feel? Because by doing these types of therapies, you should feel better the rest of the day. If you do this stuff in the morning or at night or whatever, you should feel better for the next 24 hours. If at any point in the next 24 hours you feel more fatigued, you feel exhausted, you have a headache, you feel nauseous, that's not what we're going for. That's too far. You didn't hydrate enough. Your system wasn't ready for it. You pushed it too far. You got it too cold for too long, and it's having a hard time regulating. And again, especially with thyroid issues, and I can say this because I have a history of thyroid issues, where I had postpartum thyroiditis. I had both hyper and hypothyroidism, that regulating my body temperature can be different sometimes. So there is that. So cold plunge saunas, all that other stuff, that's different. Gua sha tool. Oh, is this a trend? Blah, blah. Listen, in my Eastern medicine classes and my Chinese medicine classes, I learned how to use gua sha tools for scar tissue, for lymphatic drainage, for body tissue work, not just for like, oh, I'm gonna chisel my jawline. Yes, chiseled. Rah, rah, rah. Sure, right? That's the trendy thing that they're used for. But again, these types of tools, and again, fun. This is made of jade, right? This is a jade stone. They used to be made out of bone. The original like acupuncture tools and things were made out of bone. So they've been around for thousands of years. There's a purpose to them, and it depends how you're using them. But unless you are trained with it, it's better to have a professional do it for you or show you specifically how to do it for your system so you're not damaging tissue. I have had people come into my clinic when I had my clinic and everything else. They were trying to do good things for their tissue and health and stuff. And I'm like, you actually just bruised the crap out of yourself and did not actually remove scar tissue. So that's not good. Yeah. And then my other thing, light therapy. I love red light therapy. Can't recommend this enough. Can't recommend utilizing red light therapy. Again, this is a new technology, but based on sunlight and everything else. Can I make my face look creepy? Ooh, right? We don't get enough natural sunlight now with our lifestyles. We need enough natural sunlight. So having something like this is fantastic because it's a stopgap and a way to get the proper light therapy in that's so hard for us in our lifestyles today, our busy lifestyles today. So I love light therapy, reduction of inflammation, improvement of mitochondrial action within the cells, blood flow, healing time, immune response, all the things. I love red light therapy. Yes, absolutely worth it. If you don't have a good red light therapy thing, invest in one. Because again, this panel from Fringe, I use it, right? I use it. My family uses it. I've used it on my dog. Like, yeah. And again, this is something that you can have for years. So is it an investment? Yes. You should, to have it cost like several $100s. Yeah. But if you use it several times a week over the course of 5 years, totally worth it. Totally worth it. Yeah. And cramps, oh my gosh. Love it. And then there was one more. Hold on, let me look. Hold on, let me think of it. So this is the last thing. I was like, yep, it's reproducing what we don't get, like the sunlight. Sound therapy. That was it. Sound therapy. Doing so, singing bowls, Rife machines, frequency machines, things like that. These are a very new technology, and I really do think that if you have not explored this, start. But if you start to really worry about how do I ground myself? How do I calm my nervous system? How do I really like, stimulate my vagus nerve and all that other stuff. Sound therapy. So when we talk about warm and cold therapies, yes, right? Tissue therapies, yes, right? But, take it, work into some of that stuff. Light therapy and sound therapy. So I have a Rife machine that I use and love. I have sound bowls that I will use periodically because it does help ground your system. And again, I live in Minnesota, so sometimes it's really hard to get that grounding when it's frozen outside. So there's that. So that's one of my last things that, again, it's an investment to get, but very well worth it when you are investing in your health. That way you're not starting over all the time. You're not whatever. I've got my basic tools. I've got my things that I use. I use them multiple times a week. Other people in my family use them. So for me, the cost per usage is pennies. And every time you use it, you get a benefit. It's fantastic. So that's what I got for you guys today. Please let me know if this is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. If you want me to do a deep dive of any of these products, I would love to. More than happy to. Just let me know and I will do it. But these are some of my favorite things I utilize on a regular basis in my home with my own family and aminals and my dogs because it's fantastic. The dogs don't do cold therapy, really. Maybe they do. Gary runs around outside and gets really hot, and we have a little pool for him in the shade, and he'll jump in that in the summer. Maybe that's cold therapy, right? Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Let me know if you need anything else, and I'll see you later. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. If you would like more information, just head on over to drbethwesty.com for all the show notes and information from today's episode. And if you're looking for more community, more support, you can find and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and I would love to see you there.